Welcome to a groundbreaking approach that bridges the gap between scientific training principles and competitive success in swimming. Whether you're a coach seeking to optimize your program, an athlete striving for peak performance, or anyone passionate about sports development, this methodology will transform how you think about training progression. Join us as we explore how to systematically build champions through individualized, data-driven training that adapts to each athlete's journey.
The talk today is basically about from science to success. What I tried to do when I use 3S is I begin with the end in mind. Where do I want to be with my teams? Where do I want to be with my clubs? And how do we reverse engineer everything backwards so we can create a developmental pathway that will lead somebody to that success if they so desire? So making sure that we have all those things. We have the four pillars of the success, in my view, is the physiological, the psychological, the tactical, and technical. And 3S is the backbone of the physiological part of that four-part section. Technical, obviously, we all know what that is. It's the mechanics and efficiency. Tactical is the pacing and the racing. Physiological is the backbone, and then psychological is the mindsets. When I put together my programs, I try to make sure that we don't have any huge abrupt changes, that everything flows. And 3S gives me that ability to create individual markers at each stage in an athlete's development so we can get them to where they need to be. Now, this all transpires inside of a group setting. I heard earlier somebody talking about, well, how does this work with a group? The great thing about 3S when you have a developmental progression is you're creating these benchmarks at each stage, and then you're putting individuals within there. And then they're all trying to get to that one benchmark, but they're coming at it from their own place. As Sergey was saying, they're going to New York in a different speed. So if you're looking at that, you have a group, it might not be homogeneous, it might be pretty diverse, especially in an age group setting, but you have a specific target. And that's what they're going to do. And each child, each swimmer gets their specific goal times for what they need to do. So it's a really great way to individualize a workout inside of a group setting. Again, this goes from every stage, from entry level to elite. And when I put together the current program that I'm at Florida Atlantic, this is basically the system that we started to use it. So even at the first stage where they're coming into stroke school, they get their fun, the love of the sport, that's awesome. Then we go into our next phase where they start to see energy zones as perceived exertion so they can understand what that is. And we're talking about young swimmers. Then we go into the blue. They're also starting to get their heart rate, and then we begin adding their individualized 3S times at that stage. Going into more of an age group, elite age group, or national development, as I call it, they're starting to do their parametric sets. We put in a ghost model to make sure we do that. We're looking at basically AAA benchmarks at that point. And then when they go to the national level, it's a little bit more individualized than group setting. We'll put everybody into certain training groups, but there's a lot more individualized fidelity that goes along with that than you're dealing with a 10-year-old. One of the things I've tried to do to make sure that we have a progression is put in a ghost or model athletes, and we have a certain target. And again, if we have these different developmental markers within each one of these age groups, we can then have the individual times assessed towards that. So this is basically a progression in the age group ranks of how to get people from the novice program all the way through to national. One of the things that I think is very much overlooked at 3S is how much it is an educational piece. Sure, we get these individualized times, we do all that, but how we create our culture, how we present it to the swimmers, how we present it to the parents, how we present it to the staff is what separates 3S from just a suite of tools. It is definitely for training. The swimmers, they learn what zones are. I've seen programs where it's basically smooth, hard, fast, all out. And the definitions of those different areas can become very fuzzy. And a lot of times you'll have swimmers that are really gung-ho and they're going all out on things where they should be going smooth, and then they'll hit a plateau and they'll wonder why. Gosh, I've been working as hard as I can. I've been doing all this. Well, you weren't in the right zone at the right time and holding the right paces. So they learn about that. It also helps when you're dealing with swimmers that have high expectations. They've been training hard, they've been doing the pull-in phase, they've been doing the accumulation phase, and now they're at a swim meet, basically early mid-season, and they're like, well, why aren't I doing any better? Why am I adding all this time? And it's really easy to tell them, look, we haven't hit these energy zones yet. And one of the things that I like to do when I'm educating my swimmers on this is basically say, for the 5 energy zones, it's 5 gas tanks. And over the course of the 15, 16 weeks of the season, we're going to fill up each one of those gas tanks at the appropriate time to make sure that at the end of the season, your gas tanks are all full. You can step up on that block with absolute confidence, knowing that you did everything you need to do to make sure that you gave yourself every possible avenue for success. So when the swimmers have that, they don't just have self-confidence, they have self-efficacy because they understand that they've done everything that they needed to do to fill themselves up. Now, turning that over to parents, you're really helping them see the long-term goal. And when they see the long-term goal, they understand the progression. So if 3S is part of that entire, what I call a level system that I put together for all the different phases, they understand that, hey, we're at the beginning of the season. What are our expectations at this meet? Well, our expectation at this meet is, are we going to negative split? Are we going to even split? Are we going to have nobody breathe in and out of the turns? Are we going to have great underwaters? So we're focusing in on different aspects of the program that they need to do at the end of the season so they can have success. And again, we celebrate that and we teach the parents to celebrate that type of success. So they're not always saying, did you do your best time? And then, oh, you didn't? Well, nice try, honey. Kids read that. And when the kids read that, then they're not going to do the tactical things that you tell them to do in a race pace. They're going to try to please mom and dad and go all out. So really, it's a great tool for the swimmers and the parents to understand the long-term progression, not just within the season, but within the development itself. With staff, having a unified language and expectations really, really helps. Moving from one group to another, especially in an age group environment, if somebody is saying A, B, C, and you're saying X, Y, Z, and they're relearning every time, or if you have a new coach come on board and they don't understand your program, then you're just going to be a collection of individuals that are personality driven within each one of your group rather than an actual program. Having run a very large organization in the past where we had multiple pools and multiple coaches doing different things, it was really easy to get everybody on board with 3S to run these types of programs because we were all doing the same thing. And if you were at one pool at one day and another pool at another day, you could still maintain the system that you needed to do because we all had that one unified system. It wasn't just a marriage of convenience, it was an actual program. And one of the things that I really love is the individualized treatment within a group setting, as I said before. So everybody has a stake in the outcome. Everybody is getting the attention that they need. It is not just, as too many programs are, well, I'm going to take care of these guys, and then you guys are going to fill in the rest. So we're going to create the workout for Jane Doe and John Smith, and then you guys get what's left over. And that makes it so much more difficult for the kids to have a buy-in. They see the prejudice, it's obvious, but more importantly, if you individualize everything in a group setting, then you're going to give them goals. And I know a lot of people use test sets, and Sergey has test sets inside of his system as well. But for me, once I educate the kids about the power of 3S and the power of what they do each and every time they push off the wall, every repeat is a test set. Every time you go off the wall, did I hit the right pace? Am I holding the right zone? And that makes it a lot more fun. And it really helps with the people that are perfectionists when they can hit all those things. And one of the things that going off that a little bit is you have to be careful with perfectionists. When you say 104.2 is what I want you to hold, and they hold 105.3, you have to kind of like say, look, we want to be in that range, be as close as you can. There is a range and a little wiggle room. The big thing for you is to try to be as consistent as you can. Let's see where we are next week. Journal where we are right now so you understand where you're doing and what you're doing, so you just have an idea. This also helps as I'm developing a new team and building everybody back up, better habits as far as pushing off the wall. If you push off the wall 3 seconds late, you're never going to know your time. So it really embeds into them, hey, I have to look at the clock, I have to leave on time, I have to do what I'm doing. If I just sit there and talk and they go, oh yeah, I got to go, you're never going to understand what it is. So it really is a game changer in terms of responsibility for each one of the swimmers. I'm going to go over this a little bit here, and then I'm going to take questions, and then we can go inside the system itself. I know many of you have gone to the other seminars that Sergey has done in the past, but I just want to talk about how the season works from a design standpoint, and we can do it in real time as well. So really what you're looking at is your start and your end of your season. And then what 3S is so great at doing is if we want to go from 58.5 to 56.2, for example, from week 1 to week 16, 3S is awesome at taking that particular spread and then making sure that it creates a progression curve where you're starting and understanding each one of these different weeks has different energy zone mechanisms and targets for each one of the strokes. So when you're setting up the system, you go in and you put in the kids' best times, you make sure that you have it all taken care of from that point of view. And then you create, at least what I do, is a ghost athlete for my age group swimmers. And then everybody pins to that ghost athlete. And then their individual times for each week during the course of that season are implemented when I make a master workout. So they also really understand the 4 seasons or 4 parts of the season that we do with the pull-in, the accumulation, the realization, and the taper. They are getting a much better job, especially kids that come to me not from 3S, about what a taper is. And taper is really finalizing the progression that you've been in. It's not going in a hole for 2 weeks and then jumping on a block and sprinting. So again, it's a lot of dependent on their different event, but really it sets the tone for how they approach each one of the weeks. Once you get done creating that master season, you're going to look at the weeks independently. And again, each one of the weeks is going to be different from an energy load standpoint because those 5 gas tanks that we have to fill up have to come in at different times of the season. We don't want to try to fill all 5 up at the beginning because then we're going to have issues in terms of overtraining and peaking too early in some cases. So basically what I have here on a screenshot is week 9 in the middle of the season. It's a heavy duty week. There's a lot of things, but you can also notice that there's a 3-day microcycle within each week. And that's really helpful for the body to get what it needs, get the rest that it needs from different energy zones, and then move on to the next so it's prepared. Week 9, we're also in the middle of doing our parametric sets, which Sergey has talked about in the past, which are incredibly helpful. And then we can use AM and PM sessions to distribute the workloads. One of the practical things that I do when I go in there, the new tool has so many options than the old tool does. And the new tool has these great things where you can set up the weeks, and I'm going morning, afternoon here, I'm doing Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday mornings, I'm doing this, split it all up. Me personally, what I like to do is set it all up as one workout, take a look at what I need to do. And then if I'm doing 2 workouts, I can split it up over the course of those 2 workouts in a way that makes most sense for me for that week. And again, you're dealing with some people in an age group program that are not going to be coming 2 times a day. So how do you get in this hard day, this Tuesday, let's say, where it's approximately 7,000 yards and you have parametric in zone 3? We'll take a look at some of those questions in a little bit. So we talked about zone fidelity, meaning we talked about the kids understanding that each zone is important. I just had a talk with the kids yesterday. We're only in day 2 of our season. And I was reminding them, hey, look, guys, if you stop in the middle of a 1A set and your heart rate goes down and you're waiting for 2 minutes, you've basically just split that up and you're no longer attacking the energy zone the way that you need to do. So if you think, I can go to the bathroom in the middle of 4 or 500s and then come back and, hey, I did my 1A. No, you've totally destroyed the fidelity of that set. So you're dropping out of that zone and you're not going to get the adaptation that you're going to need later on. And we use the word adaptation a lot. We want to make sure that they understand that the stresses that they put on their body in a certain way are going to give them the adaptation that they want. And then adaptation is basically goals. So we want to make sure that they understand that they have responsibility, that they do the things that they need to do when they need to do them, when they have to leave on time, when they have to hit the wall and look at the clock. So all these things become part of the culture of the team so they understand that they can get the best out of it. The parametrics are absolutely amazing. In my mind, I think they're more of a double parametric than just a single parametric. And in essence, you're changing one parameter over the course of period of time. Let's say that's, in this case, it's the number of repetitions, trying to hold something steady over the course of 8 weeks or so in the middle of the season. And what I have found that happens is we're starting out and the kids are basically at zone 3 doing 6 100s, let's say. And by the time they get to 13 100s, they're actually going faster than when they were doing the 6, and they're getting basically into more zone 2. So the feeling of accomplishment that they have, knowing that they started out struggling doing 6, let's say 100s, and then when they did a lot more and they were going even faster, that lends to the psychology of, I know that I'm prepared, I have the self-efficacy, and then it just breeds more success. And the more they have success in the training pool, the more they have success in the racing pool. And what also is great about 3S in terms of the tactical aspirations of it is that I can speak to somebody when they're doing a 500, let's say, hey, you don't want to go out in zone 5. You only have 8 to 12 seconds of that, and then you're going to use that in the early points, then your body's going to have to try to get rid of it. So you really can talk to them in terms of, all right, I want you to go out X, Y, and Z in terms of energy zones, so they understand what it feels like, they know the paces, and they can continue on with a strategic way. And they own the races because they're prepared. And all of us, if you've ever swam, you know the difference between surviving a race and thriving in a race. And with the 3S set of tools, it gives the athletes the ability to thrive and own it, and then their splits are constant. I call it basically, like when I'm dealing with the age group kids, especially, I say, if we're doing a 200, let's say, I want to see a Lego, meaning you're going to start here, you're going to go here, you're going to go here, and you're going to come here. We're not going to go boop, 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 boop. That's not the way we train. Okay. We're not going to climb the ladder. You have the confidence, you have the ability, you know what it is. And if you look at some of my swimmers' splits, they are so even that it's incredible. So it's a lot of that has to do with the zone fidelity, understanding what it is, the confidence, and then also the ability for them to understand and know their paces internally. A little offside here, I tried the form goggles when they first come out because obviously I try everything when it first comes out. And one of the things that I disliked about it from my standpoint was the internal guidance that they get from not having the clock in their eye helps them hold the paces a lot better than getting constant feedback of what their time is. It's kind of like us with Siri and GPS. I know if I go to a new city and I'm driving around and it's telling me turn left, turn right, turn left, you could unplug that GPS and I would be lost in the city. So for me, 3S also, by giving them that pound every day, what are you holding? What is this? What is the time? What are you doing? Gives them that internal GPS to know what they do. So it really helps them when it comes time to race. All right, so I showed you that week 9 age group hell day of about 7,000. And what I do personally is before I even do anything, I look at, okay, how much do I have to do today from the 3S suggested? Because when you put in your times, it can adjust to what your times are, but 3S will give me a baseline. Okay, I have to do this amount in zone 1, I have to do this amount in zone 2, etc. So I take that and then I break it up. And in a real world example, I try to warm up with about 1,000 yards. Okay. And again, the warm up is going to depend on what we're doing after it. If it's early in the season, we're probably doing more drills, smooth. If we're a little bit more in the season like this, by the end of that 1,000, we're getting our heart rates up, getting ready to do something. And when I go into 3S, I'll just put the warm up in as 1,001C. I don't sit there and break up my entire warm up and do that. So I just say 1,001C so I have a record of it. And that's just across the board. Then I go ahead and I put together what is the best way for me personally to lay out the different energy zones demands for that day. So for this particular day, if we go back and look at where we were, we're talking about this day here. So we had a parametric set here. We have zone 3, zone 2, and there's a swim and kick aspect of what Sergey has in the 1A and 1B. To be frank, I barely use that. I just use it all as one energy zone. And I find that I can get a lot more kicking in rotationally by snorkels and different things and trying to really focus in on the movement rather than just getting on a static kickboard. mean, it has its place, but I just group that all as one and try to make sure that I attack that energy group. I don't say, oh, I have to do this much kick, that much that. But the great thing about it is you can put as much kick as you want or as much swim as you want, and you're still in that energy zone. So for me, especially when I'm dealing with 2 hours and 7,000 yards for highly developed age group swimmers, I'm not doing that much kick or I'm not going to get it in. So I'm going to go back over here to the workout. So I personally go into drive. I know exactly how much I want to do for each set. Then I go ahead and I put together the order. So I'll warm up. In this case, I wanted to do the parametric set first while they're fresh. I'll do a recovery set in between. Then I'll do 1A set. For here, I have 5 400s. The odds are free. The evens are IM. Then we're dealing with a lot of zone 3. And dealing with a lot of zone 3 means that, in my view, you have to break it up, because if you look at the energy zones that we have, there's a minimum and a maximum. And if you try to do 2,100 yards of zone 3 at one time, you're not going to be doing zone 3 anymore. So you have to kind of break it up, in my view, and then give some recovery time and then try it again. So in this particular case, and again, this is a hard day for one session. We're looking at 6 200s IM, 2 minutes rest, plus 650s smooth, and 2 more minutes rest. Okay. That way we can try to get in all of this yardage with still giving us a rest. Then I try to bump it down a little bit, because I know after they've done the 6 200s, they can't do another set of 6 200s or something else, or we're not going to get what we need. So I might break it down into 1850s on 50 freestyle, holding the best that you can. And then as coaches, this is where we're on the side of the deck. Come on, you got this, you do this, think about your goals. We do that, and they get pumped up and they help each other out, and then they warm down. So I have little things that I do. I do like the exact times, and I do the running yardage. So for this particular workout, it was 120 minutes, 7,000 yards. And when I do that, that also means that if you're not in on time, we're not getting this all in. If you take too much time in between, we're not getting all this in. So for a high level age group program, we have to set the expectation that you're managing your time, you're doing this, you're getting your drinks when you're supposed to get your drink. You can't say, zone 4, number 4, I got to stop, I got to get a drink. No, get it at the end, get it at the beginning, plan it out, make sure that you're doing it right. And it also helps hold other people accountable. And one of the things that I really love about 3S in this system, I think I mentioned in a later slide, but I just want to bring it up now, is we can reward swimmers based on holding time, not winning the lane. And to me, that was game changing, meaning that celebrate the kid in lane 5 who actually held within a second his time, even though he was the 5th person going and somebody else is doing summer junior times and he's doing senior champ times. But telling that person and telling the group, man, Adam did such a great job today. He was holding on to that pace. He was in there. Let's give him a big round of applause. It's the first time he did that. Is a lot better than celebrating the person who wins and doesn't hold their time or even goes too fast. You know, you may want to pull them aside. Hey, look, I love that effort. That's great, but we have to hold the time. If we don't hold the time, it's going to hurt. You're not filling up that gas tank. You're overloading on another area. You're going to hurt yourself in the long run. Let's stay true to what we need to do. I used to say the 11th commandment, know thy pace, hold thy pace. Once we have this is a master workout for a group, then I put a couple of real world people in here. And just to show you the difference. Now, these are 2 exceptional, out of this world young ladies who are extremely fast, highly motivated in workouts. But if you notice, if I have that workout that we just saw here, this is the master workout, then everybody else gets their own individualized paces for each one of those send-offs. So that is, to me, an absolute power play for 3S. Not only are we dealing with it as a spine that can create novice through national, but the nitty gritty of every day, each swimmer can get his own pace and understand what they need to do to make sure that they're on schedule to get to their individual goal times, then we're in really good shape. Understanding the zones, this is really important. The integrity, as we talked about before, the parents understand this, they can see all this. we can hold everybody responsible for what they do. It's a huge undertaking at first to make sure that you change a culture, in my view, so that everybody understands this. But once you do that, they get it completely. One of the questions I get asked all the time is, what about Dryland? Well, what I have found that if I try to mimic the Dryland work that I'm doing to match the energy zone demands for the day, I have success. Now I'm talking about people that are probably doing doubles, okay? And I can switch some things around. I can put the 3A set in the morning as well. I can have them do the Dryland that coordinates with the 3As. I personally like to do pulleys. So I understand what amount of weight I need to do. And then the kids going 25 will emulate where we are with zone 3. So they get the right work to rest ratios that we're doing. They're holding the right amount of time. Pulleys to me also gives them the feel for the water. They get to really hold on to the hard water while being as swim specific as you can. The kids absolutely love it. And it is a great way for us to do that. In addition, and for the younger kids that aren't coming twice a day, we're doing more of the core, prehab, body weight, stretch cords, 35 to 40 minutes before we swim, stretching, a lot of core, just making sure that they're good athletes and that they have the structure intact that they need to develop and then move on to the next phase of Dryland as well. So in closing of this section of where we are, it's really a developmental pathway. It's an educational system. It's a culture driver. It's also something that gives the individual an opportunity to succeed in a group environment. It gives us as coaches the tools to create that environment where we're not just focused on one or two athletes and everybody else gets what's left over. We can be as precise as we need to be for each and every one of our athletes. We can scale different training groups for those people and be specific within it. The higher you go up, the smaller the groups are probably going to be, but it's the same principle, whether you're dealing with a 9-year-old age grouper like I showed you before, or if you're dealing with a 19, 20-year-old. So I really love the fact that you can do that. And I have worked with the older ones as well with this. So I just wanted to say that Sergey has been a huge influence on what we do and how we've succeeded. And I want to open it up right now to have any questions that you have and then maybe see it in action.
Let me ask you the first question. I mean, since everybody's thinking, when you started working with Shreyas, Chelsea Nauta was one of the first ladies, girls whom you really took to real success in her life and in swimming and also in her life. And at that time, you've been just introduced. That was the first years of learning Shreyas. If you go back, like 20 years back, and because today you're speaking out of 20 years of experience, but for coaches who just started or who just looking into Shreyas, can you kind of compare and look and share your thoughts, your process, this early years, like 2004, 2005, and the progression Chelsea made before her college and became a national champion, junior champion at that time?
Yeah, fortunately, we did do things that were structured prior to 3S, but it was some of the things that everybody else did. I remember like in 91, I went to USA Swimming's coaching college in Colorado Spring, and we all had those graphs where we'd be traditional cycles where we would go 3 weeks, 1 week and do all this, and we'd fill it out with colored pencils and do that. And we would do T30s and T40s. But the thing that really got to me, that flipped my mind from where I was to where 3S is so many of the things that we were doing. Let's take the T30, for example. I used to make a T40 because I figured it had to go a little longer. But anyway, T30 is very common. But T30 basically shows you where the athletes are right now. And what my mindset did with 3S was says, I need to know where I'm going. And really just looking at it and saying, okay, Chelsea, right now we're prescribing things for you based on where you are. 3S is telling us that if you want to get here, we have to do this. So let's follow this curve and see where it takes us. And a lot of the sets are the same. A lot of the things that I do are the same. The things that I say are the same. but it's the actual prescription of the exact time and weighing the energy zones are totally new. And I think that was mind blowing. And also for me as a coach, having the confidence to say to the swimmer, yeah, this is real science. This is going to work. Let's go with it. It just made my life so much easier. And it was never click and coach. It was never like, because back in those days, they had the workout that came out with it too. And, I know a lot of people would do that, but really it's the structure of the season, the week, the day, and the set. And then the confidence of knowing that we did that. She was a unique athlete, unique individual, and would work incredibly hard. She had a great internal sense of pacing, and this went really well to her. You're going to find that your higher achievers are going to absolutely love this. And what you're also going to find is that the kids who are doing this, they're going to finally get a sense of purpose. And as we all know, if you don't have purpose in what you're doing, why even do it? So from a coaching standpoint, and again, on the competitive track, we also have the proficiency track, but from the competitive track, we want to keep everybody engaged. 3S does an amazing job of keeping everyone engaged. And she was the first buy-in and had success. And then what happens then is when one person has success, then 4 people have success, then 8 people have success. Next thing you know, you have a whole team. So everywhere I've gone since then, I've always found that 1 or 2 or 3 people that would buy in where everybody else might go, no way I'm doing this. And then boom, these kids transform. And then the parents are like, hey, wait, what's this all about? And then next thing you know, I have 17 people for morning workouts for my 12 and unders because they all understand those things. And here's the other part of it. We don't have any minimum requirements. I don't make anybody do anything. I hate that. I think that if you ask people to come 95%, you get 95%. If you encourage people to understand why they need to do 100%, you're going to get 110%. So it's a difference between being self-controlled and self-propelled. And 3S gives you that opportunity to get people to be self-propelled, because if you don't show up one day, you can't make it up. So the kids are waking the parents up. Mom, I got to get to practice. If I don't get to practice, I'm not going to fill that energy zone today. I need to fill that bucket, that gas tank. So she was a really good example of it. And I was fortunate to have worked with her at that time. Questions?
Hey, Rich, this is Fernando from the University of Georgia. How are
Oh, go Dogs.
you? Go Dogs.
A nice connection there.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about Chelsea. So, I guess one of my questions is, do you ever see any emotional fatigue that stems from doing parametric sets as often as we do it as prescribed? If so, how do you deal with that?
Okay, as you saw that I put it first, so we're right into it. It's a focus of the day. I think the first season that you do it, there is a dread where they think, oh my God, when is this going to end? How am I ever going to do this? But it's kind of like anything else. And us as coaches, we have to vessel them through that first phase. And then when they get through and they have success, they're like, oh, wow. And then you reinforce, see that parametric stuff you thought was so hard? See what it did? And they're all smiles. And that's when you have that fertile field to go in there and plant for the next season. So yeah, it's a little emotionally tough at the beginning, but it's not physiologically tough. That's the great thing about 3S. If they're holding their energy zones all week long, they have what they need for that set. If they're going too fast and they're gung-ho and they're trying too hard, we'll go back to Chelsea, slowing her down at first to make sure, because she was a perfectionist. I want to be the best at what I'm doing. Okay, great. You want to be the best at what we're doing? When we're doing 1B, you're only allowed to take 9 strokes. Okay, and you have to take 5 kicks off of each wall. You can't breathe in and out. That's where I want your focus to be, and holding that time. Therefore, if she does that set that way, by the time you get to the parametric set inside of that cycle, you're going to have the reserves that you need to stress your system and therefore adapt at the end of the season. So yeah, it's a little tough, to be quite frank, but once they have buy-in, that all goes. And it's not too tough that it's going to hurt them from a physiological sense. If that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. And
Yeah,
if I can ask a follow-up
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
to that.
Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay, so when you are writing your practices, if you could share a little bit about your process and how you write your workouts based on the 3S. Do you use the recommended practices and adapt from there, or do you have your own different process?
Sorry, Sergey, I don't use the practices at all. Okay, so what I do is I see what the energy zone requirements are for that day. All right, so I've set up the season, I've set up the week, now I'm looking at the day. Okay, I need 2,000 in this, 1,000 in this as my primary. Okay, I make sure that I write those sets out. I fill in what I need to do with my 1B and my drills and everything else, and then I put that in to play. So I don't use the sets. I literally just go onto a Google Drive. I used to use a piece of paper, write down what I wanted to do, and then I would import them into, here, I'll show you really quick. Let's see if I can switch this over. All right, so I'm going to go to that workout that I did earlier. So I'll go to the weeks, and that was week 9, I believe. And this is an actual season that's coming up. Okay, so this was that day, that Tuesday. So if I go into workouts, let's look at Monday. We go into expert mode. This is what pre-populates. Okay.
Right.
So the first thing I do is go beep, 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 edit, put in 1,000, 1C. There. Okay. Then I go ahead and I have my sets that are pre-written out on my Google Drive or my piece of paper. Then I start importing them. So I'm going to go today back to Tuesday because I've already done this one. And you'll see that I have 3 400s, freestyle 1A, 2 400s, IM 1A. Now, the reason that I did that is the set that I wrote was 5 400s, odds, free, evens, IM. So instead of sitting here and going 1 free, 1 IM, 1 free, 1 IM, 1 free, I just group them together. Because really the thing that I'm looking for is this. That's the secret sauce. So I want to make sure that I have that time to give that athlete and say, look, I want you to be holding this pace on this set, you're 118 or whatever. Then I do the same thing here. So I did the 6 200s. Okay, so there's the time that this athlete is holding. And right now it is the model athlete, but I'll show you how I changed that here in a second. Okay, notice I didn't put in the 650s recovery. Okay, I'm not worried about 3S logging all my warm up, warm down, and recovery and drills. I am looking for the targeted time that I need for my athletes when I put the workout in. So 6 200s, 6 100 IMs, and then 650s free. So that's what I would do. Now these are the time for the group athlete. For this particular presentation, I put in a couple of athletes into this group. If I go to Rain, you can see that the target times change. Okay, what she needs to do is now there. If I go to Iris, they're pretty close, but you'll see that those times change as well too. I know that in future developments, Sergey and I were talking, and they're going to have a one-page printout for your group with all the times on it. That's coming. Right now, what I do is I print out the kids in the group. I usually use a whiteboard or something else. In the past, I've done that. Could hand it out to them, could also send it to them before practice so they have it. There's a lot of different ways that you can distribute what they need to do. So you can flip it and have them come in ready to go. You can put it on a whiteboard with RB, you're holding, 31-2 on these 650s. And you just, I know that in New Orleans, we did that a lot where we would just put their first and last initial on the board and then just the time that they needed to do after each set. So if it was 6 200s, we might have 8 people's initials with the times that they need to hold on that whiteboard. So they understood what they did. So writing the workout, it's funny because the college where I am right now, they use commit. So it is intuitive. You can write things, loop it, great. The problem is it's connected to nothing. The great thing about 3S is not the workout writer itself. Okay, I can deal with that, but it's the data that the workout writer gives you for each individual within your training group that is hit for that week, that hit for that season, that's hit for that developmental cycle, that's literally can take somebody from 8 to 28, give you all of this information and give you the confidence, them the confidence, the parents the confidence, the college kids the confidence, everybody the confidence that they're doing the right thing. So this is how I use the workout writer.
That's super helpful. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Nobody else has questions. I probably have others, but I'll give other people a chance.
There are several comments here, just to simplify them in this view. So if you switch back to group model
Okay.
time, a group model workout, and now you have basically the master workout in essence. And so if you open each set in front where you see the group image, yes, here will be the times per person, individual times per set.
Right.
And like Rich just said, we are trying to do is to provide information per person per set on one screen. So basically just really kind of a pivot as a table and give set and then include all the people under that set with individual times in relation to that set. So to be printed. So that's like Rich suggested, is that probably be more helpful to have it all people per set listed on the same page, on the same screen. That is really open, but that's something we are planning to do anyway.
Just easier to print out. I mean, you have the information right here. You can do it this way, the other way. And if you had 8 people here and you're doing your whiteboard or whatever, you could just simply write down, okay, RB 513.9, IL 520, and then you're good to go.
Hey, Rich, I got a quick question for you. I'm
Sure.
Derek Perkins from Eastern Michigan. I'm a new user to this. I'm getting all this information flooded into me, so I'm trying to sort it all out. I saw that you use the week density mode.
Right.
Are you using what's written on that weekly density with the energy systems, energy zones for each day? So like on Monday through Friday, you're using exactly what's on that sheet.
I am trying to.
Yeah.
And one of the things that if you take a look again, it is a microcycle.
Right.
So shifting it over is a little bit more tricky in terms of stressing and adaptation and recovery. So I try to stay within that. Now there's certain realities, Memorial Day or a swim meet or whatever. And I know that Sergey has built-in modes to change for different circumstances for each day. I'm kind of a perfectionist and I try to keep it as close to actual as humanly possible. And again, I just want to point out too that one of the things that you have to remember, like right now, this is adjusted to time. So there's 41,000 versus 33. So if I go up here to 3S optimum, okay, there's going to be a difference in the amount. So you can see here that this is the base that I use, the 3S optimum, because I have it set now for 120-minute workout with 105 minutes of work. Okay, and if I go here, I know that I can do this, and then if I have any time left over, then I can put in my drills and different things. It's really early in the season is a great time to do all those things too. But when you're looking at this, I don't want people to put in their weekly times, then come to this. I think it defaults to coming to what you adjusted in your time for your week. I'll go back to the weekly structure here for a second. Okay. See that I don't have any mornings because I just want to get the full pure work for the day. But I also put in 120, 105. So when I go to week density, it's pulling in what I put in and it's saying adjusted to time. It's offering me 41.8 because I have enough time to get that in. I choose the 3S optimum to make sure that I do that. I add together the swim and the kick. So in the example that I just gave, basically you see that I had 1,000 yards warm up. I had a set that was approximately 3,000 yards, or I had to tweak it down a little bit to about 2,000. And that's another thing. When you get into the meat of the season, if you have to bring something down, bring down 1B and 1A first, okay? Try to always keep the integrity of the higher zones in over this. So like if you're saying, oh my God, I can't possibly get in all of this, then go ahead and take out 1A and 1B. Brent.
I'm somebody that works in optimization on something much different. Rich, how do you know that works? And this is just a question to throw out there. You said, hey, I reduced the 1A and 1B. Do we have any data to compare that to?
I have real world data.
Good.
So what I have is not real world data in the sense that I can say 1.297. I have real world results. I have seen by doing that my kids have been within a second of the goal times that I've prescribed. And one of the things that I do try to do, the higher the level that they go, is say, okay, we need to do 2-a-days so we can get those things in. Because we're dealing with a whole spectrum of people, not just the elite athletes. Elite athletes, I'm like, yeah, you're coming in. You know, it's not required, but it's necessary, as Randy Horner would say.
Yeah.
So nothing is required, but if you want to get this done, you have to do it. But with my age groupers, I have a little bit more flexibility to say at this stage in their developmental process, it's much more effective to have them work in those higher energy zones at this stage in the season.
Got it. And the reason why I bring that up is, you know, everybody's going to do it differently, but
Right.
if we can look at it, we all may learn from it.
Sure.
You know,
Absolutely.
Fernando may go, Rich is crazy. I would never do that. And if we can track it, we can go, well, wait a minute, it's somewhere in between.
That's great. And the only reason I can say this with some confidence is that I've been using it for 22 years or so. And it's worked everywhere that it's been tried. And as long as the kids understand the concepts, they can definitely develop within the system from amazing young swimmers to amazing older swimmers. We'll go back to Chelsea and then we'll flip to today. So before 3S, Chelsea was the national record holder in the 100 free for 10 and unders at 55.23. And there were so many people at the time that were saying, oh, they're going to burn out. And we had some other girls who were equally good and some boys that were good as well. And they went on to win junior nationals as a team, have great careers. They were happy. They still swim to this day, some coach. So flip to today, where we have some of the fastest 9 and unders in the country. And you're always going to get those people, they're going to say, oh, you're burning them out, you're doing too much. Well, I tend to disagree. If you're educating people and you're giving them what they need and they're having fun and they're choosing to come to you, you're not forcing it on them, and they're having success. I think what's better than winning? What's better than having success to breed more success? So really, it's not too much as long as they're coming to you. So between the time that we have the young ones, between the time they become elite, when I have them in that middle development stage, I will pare down the 1B and the 1A to hold the integrity of the higher zones for that level of swimmer. But the older level to swimmers, come on now. This is what you want to do. I'm here for you, and we got to make it happen. So I'll see you in the morning.
Got it. Cool.
Richie, question. Given your experience and given the number of seasons, so basically you did throughout your career, you dealt with so many separate seasons and then back-to-back seasons. How do you see the influence of or the sequential development of athletes from season to season within 3S? So what, because basically you kind of are doing the same work in the same structure, I should say, but because different work with the same structure from season to season. But how it worked for you? What we had this season good, this season bad. What was your experience with this transitional from one season to another?
Okay, I've told my athletes and parents that seasons are built upon each other. And basically, once you go through this one time, then you're going to go through it another. I think of it as a three-dimensional. I think you've used the term spiral. And I see it in 3D, and it's moving. So even though some of the things are the same, nothing is the same. And I remember once, many years ago, I was coaching masters for the first time, and I had this one guy, and he did his best time since college, and he had written down every workout that we did, and he was leaving the team because he moved, and he said to me, I have the book. I can do this. And in my mind, I'm thinking, great, well, now you're going to go 21.9 again every year because things have to change. The targets have to change. You know, what you're holding for the 13-100s in one season is totally different than what you're holding the next. They have to build upon each other. And one of the things that I think is so hard for people that are not 3S, or even people that may use 3S and then give their kids time off, let's just say college, and they're not training one on top of the other. It's almost like a loop where you get to this one point and then you get off of it and then you have to start back down and get to it. And then they're thinking, well, 3S doesn't work. Well, no, you have to continue the process. That season is great. Take that and then build on it and build on it and build on it. It's like if I gave you a recipe for a great loaf of bread, and I said, you go down to the market, get fresh organic eggs, get whole wheat flour, get this. And then people are like, I'll just get liquid eggs, I'll get this. And then they change the recipe and then they go, your recipe sucks. Well, no, you got to keep the recipe the same in order to get it to where you want to be. So it's the same but different.
In other words, can you say that each previous season can be used as a foundation for the future, for the next season?
Absolutely. You have the intensity starter of a season. There have been times in the past where I've tried to do it at 100% because I figured, well, I just got their best result, a couple of weeks ago. But then as I get a little older and a little wiser, I'm realizing that, okay, those week or two that they had off and what we're doing now is a little bit different. So I start them at 95% to begin the season and then project them all the way through later. But yes, each season is built upon the other. If you do not have that foundation for that next season, it's going to be hard.
From athletes' perspective, once they already been through the first season, a couple of first seasons, how do they perceive the next ones? I mean, what is their perception, from your point of view? How do they perceive it?
What's really great is the conversations that you have. So if I have a 10-year-old boy who comes into the workout and he goes, Coach Rich, what zones are we doing today? They get excited about that. They know what the zones are and they know how it goes. Later on, they know what we're going to do zone-wise probably for that day, and they get the flow of the season. But the athletes, they adapt to it and they adjust to it and they understand. And again, once you have that success, then they eat it up because they know that it's going to help them out.
Rich, I have another question here. Is your weak density that we're seeing right there, is it what was originally prescribed, or did you move things around? Did you move your zone 5s to different days, or you following it as it is?
I'm following it as it is. I think
Yeah.
Sergey's done a really good job of taking the different energy zones and placing them where they need to do. If you were on some of the other podcasts or episodes, you'll notice that if you have things that are too close to each other, they can bleed. So you want to separate things in such a way that you're stressing one, resting another, that the athletes aren't falling into a zone that's kind of mishmash on both. So I try to keep it the best that I can. Now, obviously, we all have things that change, heaters break in winter, whatever it's going to be, you have to make adjustments. And that's what we do as coaches. Again, there's the science of coaching and the art of coaching. But for me, I try to keep the science as pure as possible and then add my own art.
There are several comments, and I'm trying to probably pick up on Brent's note, is that if I understand Brent correctly, then he's questioning if we start changing the values in the volumes in different zones, how then they were kind of a stepping away from the purest or the ideal mode. And like Rich suggested that you can sacrifice the lower intensity zones such as 1B and 1A. And that's basically how we adjust times, because life is not perfect. And from a quality perspective, quality of the workout perspective, we try to preserve the high intensity sets first, the most stressful work first. And then if we need to adjust the volume, then we cut down the work in zone 1B. Again, it will be our first suspect, where we remove or adjust times in zone 1B, because it has, from a short-term perspective, it has the least effect on your training progression. So yes, you need to have it, but you always have time when you load it. And so once you move into a season, the value of each zone is changing. So the weight of each zone is different in different weeks of your season. And the further you are in the season, the weight of the low intensity zones are getting lower, especially at 1B level. 1A is continue to be important, but you can also substitute 1A with zone 2. and there were 1A and 2 are really kind of close to each other in terms of their stress value. But that's really kind of what I'm trying to say, that when we adjust 1B, we're not really changing the whole texture, the concept of moving forward. So our adaptation support is not changing, is still, we try to keep it as high integrity as possible.
Also jump in here for a second. Like you notice, like Sergey was saying about how do the seasons go? When you have a plan, especially when you're dealing with an age group program, you can see like this group, their non-warm-up, warm-down recovery is basically getting close to 35K at the peak week. If I go back to the next rung of that ladder, you're going to see that they're more at like 41, 42. So by creating the different training groups for the different levels, for the different seasons, you can progress people within 3S in a lot of ways. So the concepts are the same, but the yardage, the timing, the pacing, the rest intervals that you're doing could tighten up. There's a lot of ways that you can play with this.
Okay. Any more questions? Any more areas of your interest? Because all of your questions are very important to us, because it does help us to improve the program and to discuss different aspects of this platform in real life. So I know that all of you have, especially initially, have some concerns and maybe some fears in terms of how it may work in your environment. And probably that's one of those questions for me to reach. Any word of wisdom for a coach who's just starting or applying using 3S? What will be the stress points, the most important points you would put your focus on for a coach who's trying to work with 3S first time?
For me personally, it would be what I tell my swimmers too. Ask questions. Why? Understand the system so you can do it, but trust the system. It does work. Understand how things are put together, and then put your own individual touches on it. Just take the time to learn it. I know that myself and Sergey, we're always available to answer questions. And don't just say, oh, it's too much, and let it go. Just really ask questions and get it done, and then follow the advice. And you'll see so much improvement, so much more cohesion. And once you get hooked, we'll teach you the 3S handshake.
I do have a question. Jerry Champer here from the University of Georgia. When you said you do for the doubles, that you just block it all into one practice. So if you have, say, an hour and a half in the morning and 2 hours at night, do you just say, I'm going to do 1 3-hour practice when you put it in the system?
No, if I can do 1.5 in the morning and 2 hours at night, that's a dream.
Okay.
And then I can split up the energy zones appropriately, make sure that they have the time to recover. That's the best way to do it, especially Jerry, I know where you are and what you're doing. So, I mean, absolutely, that is clean, great for the level of athlete you're working with.
Okay. Thank you.
Good to hear from you.
Well, is there any other questions? I understand that probably it's a lot of information on you, and I think it's great to have somebody with this amount of experience to share his thoughts and ideas on how to work with 3S platform. I understand that probably there's much more which can be done here or can be discussed. There's so many nuances and elements which goes into it. We will try to keep up. I suggest that we keep up this conversation. And there's several channels. There's, of course, the conferences when we can discuss we can talk on general topics. But please don't hesitate to share your notes, share your thoughts, ideas, questions to us directly, either to Rich or myself. And that's probably the only way to learn if you're interested in what is happening here. So again, I would like to thank, and I hope you'll all join me to thank Rich Rogers for his presentation today. I hope it was available information for all of us.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Rich. And thank you,
Jerry.
Sergey.
Yep. Thank you again, and until the next time. And again, if you have any suggestions on topics, if you have any specific questions, don't hesitate to share and submit them to us. Thank you very much again. Thank you, everybody. Everybody have a good day and have a good season. We're at the beginning of the new season.
Yes, thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.